we cannot live life without stress.
Now, the body is using the resources that are there for the rest and repair and reproduction, emotions, and the thought process. Lifestyle changes are major because
for our viewers' benefit, could you kindly introduce yourself?
Hi, so my name is Dr. Bhawna Malik, and I graduated from University of Florida with my doctorate in physical therapy degree. I have been practicing physical therapy for over 10 years now, primarily with the pelvic floor physical therapy clients. And it was over recent years that my interest really dived into the fertility area as I was seeing more and more of the clients needing help in this area. And overall, the demographics and the numbers in fertility rising every year in the past few years. So I'm based in Orlando, and it's a pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you indeed. Today's topic is very important, and you are the expert here. So I want to bring this up with you and talk in detail about stress and how to manage stress. So let's first define what stress is and what the connection is between stress and subfertility.
Yes, absolutely. So stress, when we look at it, I know everybody talks about it, but we hardly sit down and define and really talk about what goes into it. And it's really very simple. It's basically any time in the outer environment, or it doesn't even have to be outer environment. It could be internal environment. But any time when the body gets off the balance, so out of the homeostasis, is the stressful stimulus or response. And so the situation that is creating the body to get off that fine balance that we live on is basically stress. And primarily, there are different types of stresses that have been categorized, primarily being the acute and chronic. Yeah. And then we have physical stress, emotional stress, and environmental stress. Talking about the acute stress, it really is a body's natural response. So nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a very adaptive response of the body. So back in the days when, let's say, our ancestors were being chased by a tiger or in a situation where they had to really protect themselves and survive, it was a very, very adaptive response to quickly act, get a boost of those cortisol levels and, increased hormones, and then either run, hide, or whatever they have to do in that situation to save themselves. Now, none of us really hardly ever get in that situation, but if you look around, most people are stressed, and most of that is really coming from more mental emotions and things that are created, of course, by our own self, that are creating situations as if we were being chased by a tiger or something like that. So we'll talk about that, but I hope that answered your question.
Yes. Here's another additional question. You talked about how our ancestors were in dangerous elements and they had to either take flight or fight to protect themselves. Now we are in a place where we don't have those elements near us. However, we have mental and emotional stress. In one way, our bodies cannot identify stress then and stress now. Is that?
Our body is very intelligent. So that's the part of our human design, if you will, that in our mind, if we close our eyes and only go back to that stressful event that maybe happened years ago, just by mentally imagining or even explaining that situation, the body will produce the same chemicals or hormones just to match what we are thinking. So the thinking alone is enough. We don't need to have that. And that's what makes it so profound, because a lot of the emotions are being so mismatched. That emotional regulation piece is something that our society on a large scale needs so badly today. And so we don't have to have that actual stressful situation. We can only create that by thinking and by really reliving. And each time that we explain that situation, we are reliving that particular trauma or any stressful situation, and the body's responding with the corresponding chemicals, which could be based off of fear or guilt or shame or anything that mostly is causing the stress and then leading on to these emotional reactions.
Wonderful. If I may ask, how long has research been going on connecting stress with sub-fertility?
That's a great question. So stress is the fertility area. And as far as the initial research, it really only came out in late 60s. So 1967, I believe. And the very first research that I can think of was from this gentleman called Hans Selch. And he came up with the research that chronic stress can actually lead to hormonal imbalance and lead to fertility issues. Now, a couple of things that we should be considering here is that, first off, we have been living in a society that was primarily male dominant. So back in the days, especially so, that most of the research was done around male-related health issues, and infertility as a large was considered to be a female issue. While we now know that that is absolutely not the case, it really takes the two. However, because of that, most of the research related to the fertility issues, stress, it was primarily not done for those reasons as well. And then something else to consider is that all of these researchers need funding. And so if it is an issue that is benefiting, let's say, the drug or any other bigger industries that it's monetizing, it's worth doing that research. But on the other hand, more of the natural resources or finding out more of the connection of what we actually can do is not something of research or profitable for people to actually consider that. So it's only in the recent years when the mental health has become a topic that everybody's welcoming and embracing, because they're seeing that the medical system in general is almost failing here. So only in the recent years we have become more serious, and more research, is now coming out. And we are finding out some substantial data related to this.
So it's an ongoing study. That's great.
Yes.
Now, coming to how stress affects fertility. When somebody goes to the doctor say, don't take stress. Now, most people do not know the connection between not taking stress and sub-fertility. And actually, a lot of people do not know what, stress management has got to do with fertility. So please, could you clarify that for us?
Yeah, so I know it's easier said than done, because unless we speak about these details and how it's underlying the whole issue, it's hard to comprehend for a lot of people.
Yes.
So what stress does is that, again, that response from the body, which was once very, very adaptive, has now become maladaptive. Because, like I said, we don't actually need the actual scenario that is stress. We can only do that by our thoughts and emotions. We have to think of a thought and then feel the emotions that is corresponding. And there you go. Body can start to produce the cortisol levels, adrenaline, all of those to increase the spike, and then the body starts getting in that mode, which again is okay in an acute situation. Stress happens and the body goes back onto that balance and homeostasis. However, when it's happening over and over and becomes a chronic issue, now the body is using the resources that are there for the rest and repair and reproduction and building the cells and regenerating. And all of that is taken away from that to, it's like the fuel given to that stressful perception, because it's not an actual stressful really condition, so that the body can take care of that perceived. So when that happens, the stress starts to affect the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which gives the signals to the stress hormones, which increases the cortisol levels and the adrenaline. As a response to that, it starts to disrupt the normal reproductive hormonal balance. Because of that, and more stressful thoughts keep coming, now we also reduce the signaling to the neurotransmitters, which are responsible for, neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. So these are the hormones that keep us happy, really. So when you take those away, now there is more anxiety and depression. And to top things off, it also affects the stress, also affects body's natural sleep-wake cycle. So now the person is not feeling depressed and anxious, but they are also fatigued because of those sleep disturbances and insomnia coming in picture. So it becomes a vicious cycle. If it's not corrected and disrupted, then it just keeps going on, and the body doesn't have the resources to support a pregnancy, because a pregnancy really, the body doesn't, that it's a safe home for a baby. So when it's so stressful, it really isn't thinking the time.
Yes. In a way, it's like our body's shutting down by itself in order to protect our body in front of the perceived stress.
Yes, that's absolutely right, because like I said, those resources are being used to fight that perceived situation, not for the actual rest, repair, building, regenerating, reproduction, and, those kinds of projects, first to say.
Amazing. More than acute stress, chronic stress is the problem here.
Yeah, definitely. It's the repeated thought patterns and the repeated stress. And what happens is, much like any other dopamine, when we think about whether it is electronics or any other, addiction, which is really nothing more than being dependent on something. Like you get so used to it that you can't do without. And so in the same way, the body gets used to those chemicals or hormones of stress. So now, just because you have repeatedly thought and mismanaged some of those thoughts and emotions, it becomes addictive in nature.
No, we cannot live life without stress. And maybe in some ways, stress is also important because it signals something to us. So can lifestyle changes make any impact or make any difference in reducing stress-related subfertility?
Absolutely. So I understand that we live in a day and age that we get to meet with these, deadlines and whatever else is going on. We have, immediate work life situation, personal life situations, and things come up. So all of that, of course, we take care of those things. The thing that makes a big difference is how well we understand the emotions and the thought process and the root causes of how we respond to stress. Lifestyle changes are major because, like I said, the physical stress, environmental stress, and the emotional stress, really, we got to look at the whole picture here. So lifestyle changes make a big difference because diet is a major part of how it impacts our bodies. How well is our immune system to fight off some of those, stressors? On top of that is the oxidative stress. So the diet, lifestyle changes like the exercises, and also right kind of exercises. Now, there is extreme exercises. They are also not good for fertility and then too less is also not making much impact. So it has to be that just right amount. And additionally, the breath work, meditation, sleep, all of these really, and on top of that is the environmental toxins, which have become a major issue as far as the fertility goes. So those hormone disruptors need to be out of our environment so that we are, at least what we can control, we can take care of that right away.
Yes, absolutely. If Jamie today were your patient and I come to you with chronic stress, what would you advise to me to manage stress?
Okay, so first of all, Jamie, we're going to have an initial evaluation. And that is important because that's when we really get to understand each other, understand what the situation is, and work as a team from that point on. So in our practice, we typically do about 6 to 8 sessions because it's chronic stress, and let's be real. It took some time for people for you to get there. It's going to take some time to get you out of here as well. Important part is that I take pride and I love being able to provide all of that supporting data and the tools that you need to, first of all, empower you to see what is in your control and what you can actually change, and then show you that by doing that, it's actually going to impact your own lab values, for example. And those are some concrete objective measures, right? going back to you coming in for the chronic stress, first step is be to determine what is the root cause, and then seeing in your particular picture what things we can manage, how we can address it, and then we come up with a plan. And both of us, like I said, it's going to be a teamwork. So there's going to be some steps for you expected to be taken each session. And so there will be a full game plan until the very end.
Okay.
I hope that answered your question.
Yes. So in some way, as somebody going through chronic stress, I am not getting the bigger picture. So I'm not able to look at my life and evaluate what's causing me stress. Getting to the root cause. That's very important. Nobody talks about it much.
Yeah. And unless the root cause is addressed, the problem is going to keep showing up. And people will keep wondering where it's coming from without actually addressing the root cause issue.
Yes. Without the root cause, everything is just a temporary fix.
Yeah. It's like a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.